Welcome to this session of Learning Technology Design 2017 entitled Cool Tech Tools to Turbocharge Your Learning Business. Our speakers for this session are Celisa Steele and Jeff Cobb, co-founders and managing directors of Tagoras. To learn more about our speakers, click on the Speaker tab on the virtual conference website. During the session, please use the chat box located at the bottom left of your screen to submit your questions or comments. Simply type your questions or comments and then just click the send button. And please note that any questions and comments will be viewable by all attendees. If you need technical assistance at any time, please click the live support button in the links box, or you can send an email to tagoras-ltd@compartners.com. I will now turn the program over to Jeff and Celisa. Enjoy the session.
Thanks so much, and welcome everyone. This is Jeff Cobb, and I am joined by Celisa Steele, who will be chiming in a minute here. In this session, we're going to look at a range of tech tools, many of them, in fact most of them, certainly relatively low cost, and many of them free. And these are tools that we think can provide a boost to different aspects of your learning and education business. And so we've spent quite a bit of time, really, trying to sort out and try out and cull through different tools, and we finally arrived at the following 5 categories of tools that we thought we would highlight. And within these areas, some of the tools are going to apply more to education and learning. Others will apply more to marketing. Those are kind of the 2 main areas that the tools will cover. Most of these tools will actually apply to both, or have the potential to apply to both. And I'll say before we dive into it, one, we're going to be pretty fast-paced here because we do have quite a bit we're trying to cover. 2, we do have what we're calling kind of a click-away policy for this session. You'll notice over in the left menu, if you look above chat, there's a links area. There are links to everything that we're going to refer to here. The links are also noted in the slides, so you know how to get to things. And given the limited time that we have, there's only so much it's going to be possible for you to try out during the session, or at least within the session. We'll be trying to do some of that and getting hands-on and applying some of this stuff. But if you see something that looks really interesting to you and you want to click away and go check that out and spend some time on it, feel free to do that during the session. But we also encourage you to come back and share some of what you've learned in the chat area. And all throughout, too, we hope we'll share ways that you might apply some of the tools that you're seeing, as well as any cool tools that you use that you think might be useful to others. And again, if you can maybe say how you're using them too, that would be a great thing. So the first area that we're going to jump into is cool collaboration, and competition is also an element of this. And these are some great low-cost ways to add collaboration, particularly into your live educational events, whether those are place-based or online, to make them more engaging and ultimately more effective. And to kick us off in here, I'm actually going to turn it over to Celisa.
Well, great. So the first of these tools we discovered when we were trying to come up with a collaboration tool to use in conjunction with a webinar that we did on social learning. And we wanted to make sure that we weren't just talking about social learning, but also providing an opportunity for social learning to happen. And I know many webinar platforms aren't necessarily great at the social learning aspect, and that was true of GoToWebinar, which is what we were using for that. And so Padlet really seemed to fit the bill for adding in some social learning. And what Padlet provides is basically a digital pad on which learners can post and comment on various types of objects. So it can be text, it can be photos, it can be even video or a document. And so what we used it for in the context of this social learning webinar was we had people post examples of social learning, and we laid out a spectrum from simple to more complex. And so we had them kind of not only post their idea, but put it at the appropriate spot along the spectrum. And it really was effective. And in fact, this is one of the places where we want to get hands-on and give you a chance to try it out. So we did set up a Padlet for this session, and you can navigate to it by clicking that number 3, the Padlet Cool Tools, in that links box that's there above the chat. That will open this up. And if you have a cool tool that you like to use, we would love for you to share it there. We've posted there about Padlet. We've had at least Jody from Blue Sky and posted about Slack that they use at Naylor, and you can feel free to share here. That said, too, if you don't necessarily have a cool tool idea, but you have a dream tool, like you're looking for a cool tool that does X, you can post that too and sort of do a want ad for a particular cool tool. And so Jeff here is screen sharing that Padlet. You can navigate to it yourself here, or if you don't feel like navigating away, you'll be able to see what others are doing here in this little screen share, and if there's time, we'll come back to it later. But that's a really quick look at Padlet.
Great, and we'll give folks a minute here because I really do encourage you to jump over and just kick the tires quickly. I mean, this is learning by doing. Get over here. You don't have to have an account. You can see that folks are posting anonymously. We certainly encourage you to sign your post with your name if you're willing to. If you're going up there anonymously, and you can put just text and then some links up there. But if you want to try, loading a photo up there, that sort of thing. I mean, put it through its paces. We would love to see what folks are going to put up here, but just to go through the quick motion of trying this out, and as you're doing it, think a little bit about how you might apply this within your own education. We did it with webinars. We're actually obviously doing it with a webinar right now, but there are many different applications for it, and it can really help to increase the collaboration. We see Poll Everywhere going up there, Trello going up there. Those are great tools. Slack had gone up there before, and somebody else is chiming in with Slack emojis. Pixlr, Code Avengers, great site to learn to code. So we got some good stuff coming up here. So, and I encourage you, throughout this, and we may even jump back over here at the end just to have a look to see if anybody's put anything else up. But give this a try, and definitely be thinking about what you might be able to use a tool like Padlet for. And I'm going to pause. I'm going to end the screen sharing here and jump back over into the session. And with all of these, you can see that we've included, what the pricing looks like down at the bottom of it. And there is a free version of Padlet that you can use. We've just used the free version, to be honest. But there are also paid versions that give you a little bit more functionality. So that might be something you want to consider as you're figuring out ways to add more collaboration into your educational events. So let's see, and I'm going to look over at the chat, and Louise has already responded. Yes, the links will be available after the session, and definitely we won't leave you hanging on that. But they're also there for live use during the session. So let's move on to a next one, and this one is called Kahoot. Maybe that some people in the session actually experienced this one this morning. I ran a quick test of it. And what Kahoot allows you to do is basically create quick little learning games that are quiz-driven, or they've actually got a new one that's sort of puzzle, kind of jigsaw puzzle driven. But you put together multiple choice questions, and you can add in images, videos, diagrams, all sorts of things to them. Just a really cool type. Nice little tool. Learners can actually create their own as well, and then they're able to to share their Kahoot if they want to. And I thought this was another one that we could actually give a try to. Now, one of the things to know about Kahoot, and I'm going to go back over to screen share here, is that somebody does actually have to be kind of running the Kahoot. It has to be initiated. So it's usually meant to take place when there is a live event actually going on. You don't just sort of throw it out there and have people participate. So I'm actually going to hit play here on the Adult Learner Kahoot. I'm going to start screen sharing so that you can actually see that. So I've got an Adult Learner quiz, and I'm going to pick the classic option on this. And so this is going to actually fire up a Kahoot for us here, and you'll see that there is a pin up here, 267635. Now, if you will go, I encourage all of you to do this. You can do it on your a new screen, or you can do it on your mobile device very easily. If you will go to kahoot.it and put in that pin number, you will see the quiz start to load up. So I'm going to wait and see how many people we can get in here. We won't take too long, but it's a great thing to actually be able to try this out. Plus, we'll get to find out, who's the champion of adult learner knowledge here. So I'll give it just another, 20, 30 seconds here, and then we're going to jump over into the quiz. I'm going to push start, and then you'll actually see the quiz appear on whatever screen, whatever device you are using. Okay, just a few more seconds here. All right, and I'm going to click start, and you should start seeing your screen load up, and you're going to get the adult learner quiz coming up. And here it is. First question, who wrote The Adult Learner and promoted the theory of andragogy? And so you've got 10 seconds to answer this. I made this pretty rapid. So answer as quickly as you can. Got 8 answers, 9 answers, 10 answers. All right. Correct answer is Malcolm Knowles. We're going to go next. All right, we got Ninechka in the lead right now. So you get this nice competitive element in here. So according to Knowles, which of the following tends to motivate adult learners the most? So you should see that question coming up. You got 10 seconds again to answer that. 4 answers, 5, 7, 8, 10 answers, 11. All right. And it's the opportunity for improved quality of life. Knowles liked intrinsic motivation. He felt that was the strongest. Ninechka still in the lead. The next one. Next one's going to be, according to Pew Research, what percentage of U.S. adults identify as lifelong learners? Again, we got 10 seconds. What's the number? What's the number? 8 answers, 11 answers, 12 answers, 13, 17 answers. More people answering this one. All right. More people in the game now. All right. It's greater than 70%. I think it's 73%, actually. So we got Michaela in the lead now. A little jockeying for the lead. Next question. So it's going to be coming up. And it's going to be, which of the following practices does not contribute significantly to making learning stick? And so we got the clock ticking. Look at these. Which one's going to do it? 10, 11, 12. All right. 15 answers. All right. Time up. And that one was highlighting and rereading. Does not actually work well. All right. And then next is going to be the last one. According to research, which of the following can hurt learning in e-learning? As I said, this is kind of a tough one. You got to know your stuff here. 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, 15 answers. All right, let's see how that turned out. I think I skipped past that, but that was putting in gratuitous visual. So Sadie won here, and then we can kind of see how it pulled out here a little bit. So this is a great way to do a little bit of testing in the context of a live event and get a little bit of competition going as well. So that is Kahoot, and Kahoot is utterly free at this point. It is got a lot of funding behind it from grant makers and that sort of thing. So the last one we want to touch on in this area is Socrative. And Socrative is somewhat similar to Kahoot, or it's also in the vein of sort of a poll everywhere, but it's a more sophisticated quizzing type tool than either of those. You can create different types of assessments. It also has some reporting capabilities and the ability to track how learners perform. And you can use it, in a classroom type situation or in a webinar type situation to quickly assess learners, with prepared activities, or it's pretty easy to put questions up on the fly and get some results back, sort of a polling, quizzing type thing. Some of the features we like about it is that you can break people out into different rooms within it, which is great, so they can kind of break off and be doing different things. And then you can also have them in teams and have these space races as either individuals or groups. So again, you can have a nice competitive element there. And there's a free version of this, and it goes up to only about $50 a year, which is actually quite a bit less than the paid version of Polled Everywhere, for example. So that was the cool collaboration options, and like I said, we're going to be moving along pretty rapidly here to look at different things, and we wanted to look at authoring options, since that's usually on the minds of folks who are in the education business when it comes to technology. And I'm assuming most people on this in this session are familiar with popular course authoring tools like, say, an Articulate, Storyline, or Presenter, or Captivate, like Tora, those sorts of things. So we wanted to highlight some tools that are a little bit different from that. And you really need a range of options for meeting learners where they are and engaging them. So it may not necessarily be a formal course, but we do want to look at one formal course tool here. But the first one I thought I'd look at is something called ThingLink, which I found really interesting. It's just a way to be able to upload images. They can be like photos. They can actually be videos, too. They can be PDF documents. And then to be able to add different types of interactivity to them, so text boxes and video and audio and all those sorts of things. I'm actually going to jump over quickly to a screen share again, just real quick, to get us to this live ThingLink that I'm showing here. And so we're in screen sharing, and I've come over to this ThingLink, and you can see when I click around on this one happens to be about the moon landing, and there's video in there for it. There are audio files from NASA. There's a simulation you can go to. There's information about all of the different astronauts that were involved. So you can be thinking about how do you put together an image related to anything that you're teaching, that you just want to make it a little more compelling experience, but maybe don't need to go into something like a full-blown course or something like that. And ThingLink can just be a very cool tool for doing that. And again, that's free, and it can get up to being pricier. It does some very cool things with video, and it actually has a 360 visual option and a sort of virtual reality type option to it. I haven't explored those fully, but those are things that if you're interested in those types of approaches to supporting learning, you may want to look into. So that's ThingLink. And then the next one we wanted to touch on in the authoring, the cool authoring area, the tool called Branch Track. And I'll say up front, this is not one of the free or low-cost options, except if you view it in the context of what it does. It is actually quite affordable. And what it does for you is it enables you to create, design, and deliver scenario-based e-learning in your browser. So you can actually create very complex branching type scenarios, which are often something that organizations want to do when they're creating e-learning, to make it more interactive, to make it more tailored to the learning, but to the learner. But if you go out and hire an outside firm to do that, it can really cost you quite a lot of money to create branching scenarios. So this is a tool where for less than $3,000 a year, you can get going with it. Again, that may sound like a high number, but relative to what it does, it's really quite powerful. And you can make these as standalone scenarios and simulations, or these are things that you can insert into something like a Storyline or a Captivate or a Lectora authored course. So it can incorporate into other authoring tools that you're using. But if you're thinking about things like branching scenarios, this is definitely a tool to have a look at, in potentially a much more affordable way to be able to do really pretty complex e-learning authoring. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, we wanted to highlight in our LMS, or learning platform session yesterday, we talked about web-based authoring and how we've seen just a real growth in web-based authoring tools. I mean, some of these are full-blown learning content management systems, very more complex, really allowing you some very sophisticated ways to manage learning objects. But there's also been a lot of very lower cost options that have come into the market for authoring courses, authoring lessons, authoring those sort of standards-based SCORM, tin can type learning objects. And Easy Generator is one that we've used a little bit, tried out a little bit, that we really like. We think it does some very nice stuff. There's a free version of this, and even the paid version is relatively low cost. And this is a pretty sophisticated web-based authoring environment that you can get here. This kind of shows the interface a little bit with a template course in it. But it's going to have, all of the types of tools that you would expect for putting, interactivity, quizzing, testing, all the different types of content, images, videos, those sorts of things. And it's going to walk you through, a process, putting those together. Perhaps one of the strongest things about this for organizations is it does have that collaborative ability. So you can have co-authors working on it since it's on the web. It allows for that collaborative authoring, allows for reviewers to come through and check it and sign off on things. So it's got, it's not as full-blown as, a Lectora or a full-blown, LTMS type package, but it is really quite impressive for what it is, and particularly for the price. So this is an authoring tool that we wanted to highlight. And I'll note again, this does create standards compliant content, so it's going to export out into SCORM or into Tin Can, and then the output can be pulled into a learning management system and be launched and tracked. So just a good authoring option to know about. Now, we're going to head into cool images, and I'm going to hand this over to Celisa here quickly to drive us forward in this section.
Great, thanks, Jeff. One question that came in, do you know off the top of your head if a ThingLink can be embedded in a PowerPoint?
I do not know off the top of my head if that is possible or not. Yeah.
All right, well, that question came in. We'll see, Kelly, if we can find an answer to that and get back to you. But in the meantime, let's talk about this next group of cool tools around cool images. So these are things that can help you make or use images or graphics creatively. Images get used in so many ways throughout a learning and education business. So the first one is SlideBot. SlideBot is a tool for creating presentations rapidly. So it's kind of like artificial intelligence for PowerPoint. So you provide the text that you want included in your slide deck, and it automatically generates a presentation that you can then take as is, or you can edit it and then export it to PowerPoint and other formats for viewing and sharing. And so this is an example of what we did. We typed in a few phrases from a Learning Business Manifesto that we're currently working on, and this is what we got back, and we tweaked it a little bit in the editor that appears once you submit your text. We kept a couple of the suggested images. This is one that we happened to keep, and then we swapped out a couple of other images with some of the other suggestions that they had. There was a lot more that we could have done, but for the sake of just sharing this, we kept it pretty simple for the purposes of this session. So then we exported it, and so then we put those slides into this presentation. And so here's what we got. That's our text at the top. This is one of the images that had come through. There's another image with our text that came through, and then that one that you sort of saw in the editor already there. Now, this may not be the tool you want to use to design your educational sessions, but then again, it could be helpful in some instances. Our feeling is that presentations often could benefit from a much stronger visual design, and whether or not you actually want to use the slides that come out of it, I think it can be a very good ideation tool for you or for your presenter. So it can help prompt you to think about your content and to visualize your content in ways that you might not have before. And of course, aside from presentations and kind of those learning type sessions, it can also be a very good tool for creating marketing related presentations. Now, another area in which you might want to explore the possibilities that images offer is with animated GIFs. So a GIF is a single image file that involves movement. So it ends up acting almost like a very brief video. And there are a number of websites that make it easy to put animated GIFs together. One we like is gifmaker.me. It's free, and it works for both Windows and Mac users. And so we tried it out by uploading a few photos from an exercise we did at our Leading Learning Symposium this past fall. The process is really easy. You just find your photos and upload them, and then you're able to make some choices about the size of the image, the speed at which it plays, how long it keeps looping. You can also add sound, which we did not do in this example. And so here's the end result in terms of what we got. So it's just this GIF that's moving through this series of images. And I will confess that we don't have any immediate suggestions for educational application of these animated GIFs. No doubt there are, but we definitely see this as a very effective marketing tool, because I think animated GIFs really help stand out on social media channels, for example. And so we're planning to move forward with using this tool and this approach on Twitter and Facebook going forward.
In fact, I'd add that we already have. We actually did that with some of the selfies from Learning Technology Design. So if you've been on Twitter, you might have seen this tool at work. And so then finally, in this section of tools, if you don't have a graphic designer around when you need one, and even if you have access to a graphic designer, sometimes you need another one, Canva can be a great resource. So it allows you to create many different document types, so everything from logos and posters, Twitter headers, lots more, and you can also use it to create graphs and to edit images. So as an example, let's say you want to create an infographic as part of a learning or marketing initiative. So you can start from a range of templates provided in Canva, and then you can have your infographic banged out in no time at all. So again, there's a large range of design types and templates available. And so with that, I'm going to hand it back over to you, Jeff. Great. So that wraps up the cool images area, and I hope as we're going along that you are connecting this with some ways that you might be able to use these within your own learning and educational initiatives, whether that is for actual educational usage or whether it is for marketing or a combination. As you saw in our manifesto there, we believe that marketing is education is marketing, and these things kind of overlap with each other. And if you do think of ways, again, that you might use any of these tools, or if you're using your own cool tools that you found in other ways, by all means, please, we encourage you to share those in the chat so that you can help the others who are participating here learn as well. In the meantime, though, we're going to look at cool animation. So, being able to put together animations that you can use for a variety of different purposes. And these can be, a great way to make your learning experiences, and particularly self-paced learning, which, can often get a little text and image heavy, and even adding your average video into it sometimes doesn't get you where you want to go. These types of animations can potentially make that self-paced learning more engaging. And then, of course, they can also be very useful in marketing to express that sentiment once again. So the first of these that we're going to take a look at is a site called Powtoon. And I imagine that's an abbreviation of a powerful cartoon or something like that. But basically, Powtoon is a web-based tool for creating simple animations. It's definitely not going to turn your e-learning development team into Pixar or anything like that, but it can do some pretty cool things, and it's really very easy to use. So we decided to take it for a spin to create a simple Mission Impossible style video. So I'll kind of walk you through how we did that and what that looks like. So, we just got in there, and you can build from the ground up in it, build from scratch, build scene by scene if you've got a story in mind. We went with, customize a popular template because we're trying to get up the learning curves quickly here and figure out how to use this tool. So we took one of their popular templates, which was this sort of Mission Impossible type thing. And this is a have a teacher template area. When you go in here, you can say you're more about marketing, or you can, do whatever it is that you're trying to do. We picked the kind of teacher area. This is what the Mission Impossible template looked like. It's very brief. It's just going to be 6 slides. And so we were able to pick that and, click change and then go in to their editing panel, which is really, pretty simple, clean editing panel, and you can go through each of those slides and basically, change the text on it, which is going to be one of the main thing you're going to do if you're just using one of their templates. Change the text around. We, changed out a picture in it, the picture that you see right here. We're going to change out that picture. And basically turn this into something that fits a little bit more for our audience. I think it was a little more towards sort of a K through 12 type audience when we first encountered it. So I'm actually going to play this video for you, and you'll see that the animation elements are there, and then there's also some music element in this. And all of these are things that you can change in the context of editing in Powtoon. So here is our brief Mission Impossible, Mission to Learn Powtoon. It looks like we may need to figure out how to rewind this somehow. That I do not know how to do. It looks like we played it earlier, so it may not be playing again now.
And Jeff, it's playing.
Okay. I just must not be seeing it on my screen for some reason. That's great. Okay, so I'm going to assume since the music has stopped that the video has also stopped. I was not able to see it on my end, but it sounds like everybody else was able to see it, so that's great. And again, that's one type of animation. There are also types of animation that have more figures in them, characters who move around and can do all sorts of things. We just decided to choose one of the simpler ones for purposes of this particular exercise. But also take that mission in there seriously. We would love to hear from you. What you might plan to do with any of the cool tools that you're learning about here or others, to email us with those and tell us what you're going to be using them for and who you're going to be using them with. And definitely check out Powtoon. There's a free version of that. It's going to have that sort of watermark on it that you can see down there, their logo on it if you use the free version. But then even the paid version is not terribly expensive when you consider what this can potentially do for you. So that's Powtoon. And then also in the sort of video animation type area, we haven't been able to explore this one quite as much, but it's a really cool tool for creating whiteboard type animations. So, again, you're going to feed it a certain amount of information that it's then going to take and turn into some sort of whiteboard animation, typically to help you, explain something, to get across a technical point or that sort of thing. And you can see again, all of these web type applications now are going to have kind of simple editing type interfaces. This is one where you're choosing your elements, you're sliding different things in, or you're picking from a body of different animations really that they already have there that you're sort of combining together to make into something that's going to work for you. So you put this into the board, and when it actually plays out, you're going to have that hand coming out, and it's actually acting like it's sketching it on the pad for you. So, if you've got things that lend themselves well to these sort of, sketch-type animation explanations, again, this can be a great way just to add some color to what you're doing and keep learners' attention primed, to keep them engaged, but then hopefully also really convey what they need to learn substantively in an interesting way. So that's Video Scribe. There's a free trial version of that. You do have to pay though to really use that one. But again, it's starts at $8 per month. Certainly, very affordable for being able to produce these types of animations to add into, again, particularly your self-paced learning activities. And then the final animation application tool that we thought we would highlight here is one called Explain Everything. And this is it's a similar idea to Video Scribe, but it's not the sort of whiteboard type stuff. It can really be just about any types of elements that you might want to put together to just explain something. Again, sort of a how-to, make it as interesting as possible. These are going to tend to be very brief type videos. You're not going to be putting together more than 30 seconds up to a couple of minutes. This one actually happens to be an app, really. So you can download it on iOS, which would mean an iPad or an iPhone. iPad is probably the better option here. For $8 to $16, or you can broaden it out for use on Android or Microsoft applications for a per user per year type price. And with these, somebody's asking, can these be incorporated into PowerPoint? You are going to be able to export, what you create in these into a video format. For example, I didn't mention with Powtoon. We exported that to Vimeo because we use Vimeo a lot for our video. It could have been exported to YouTube. We could have just downloaded it as an MP4 video. All of these are going to have those types of options, so you're going to be able to get an output from them. So, to the extent that you already have the ability to insert a video into a PowerPoint, you would be able to do that. And similarly, you would be able to take these and drop them into a course authoring environment as well. So, just as we said earlier about being able to put the branch track scenarios into a Captivate or a Lectora or an Articulate, the output from these types of things are going to be video-based, so you're going to be able to drop them into those sorts of authoring tools as well and incorporate them into a larger and potentially much longer, more sophisticated e-learning type experience. But these are definitely worth taking some time to try out. They do always have free trials and/or very cheap, so you can get in there and get your hands dirty, which is the best way usually with any of this stuff to figure out whether it's going to be useful to you or not. So those are the animation, and so far we've been doing things that are really kind of software-driven. They're applications. They are going to be what help you to create things. But we also thought it'd be useful in the context of this session to talk about cool services as well, and services that tend to be technology-driven, where technology has just made it much easier to get certain things done. So we had a number of these we wanted to highlight, and the first one I'll mention is a site called rev.com, or just Rev. And at least some of the attendees here may be aware that we're big fans of podcasting. In fact, we host a weekly show called The Leading Learning Podcast. And if you're into podcasting or other forms of recorded media, which most people in the education business are to some extent or another, you know that being able to get transcriptions rapidly can be really useful. So Rev.com is a site that's dedicated specifically to transcription services as well as captioning and translation services. So if you're working with audio and or video and you need transcriptions, captions, or translations, this may really be something you want to check out. I mean, you can see the pricing in this image is just a $1 per minute or 10 cents per word for the translations. And basically, you just go here, set up an account, upload your files, or you can actually even have a Dropbox folder or your YouTube account in here if you're doing a bunch of video, and have it set up so that anything you put into that Dropbox folder or anything into a particular YouTube channel is just going to be processed automatically. And what Rev is going to do is just basically dispatch the job out to a qualified professional. So it will actually be a human being in the end. This is why we call this a cool service rather than just a cool tool. But they're leveraging technology to really be able to scale what used to be a very sort of tedious, hit-or-miss kind of contract job. And they're able to turn things around very rapidly. Most of the transcription-type stuff is within 12 hours. When you get into the captions and the translations, you might getting into more 24, 48, or even a few days. But still, all in all, it's going to be very rapid to get this done. If you have these kind of needs and don't really have sort of a go-to, and particularly if your needs are spotty, a lot of organizations, if they're doing this stuff consistently, they're going to have contract services or whatever that they're using for it. But if this is something you need every once in a while and you just need it done, you need it fast and don't want to have to worry about it much, this is a great place to go for that. Then the next site I'm going to highlight here in this sort of a cool service realm is one that we've actually been mentioning for years, and whenever I do a session like this, I consider whether to stop mentioning it, but I think this is just so important that I always come back to this one. And I'll mention at least one other similar service that's out there as well, but this is usertesting.com. And if you know anything about user testing, I mean, this is the idea that you're going to have people actually test out the stuff that you've made, on screen and figure out if it's usable, if it's doing what it's supposed to do. I mean, and that's a service that traditionally has been really quite complex to organize, and really because of that, quite expensive. I mean, you usually had to get actual users into a room someplace, sitting down in a testing center with a computer in front of them, with somebody carefully observing them as they went through assigned tasks on a computer. And again, that's complex. That's expensive. What usertesting.com does is, it makes that process much easier, much less expensive. So basically, you can go into usertesting.com, set up an account, and you're going to describe what it is you want users to do. And that might be, for example, asking them to go through the process of purchasing a course on your website. If you've got a theory that your e-commerce is not, all it could be, and you want to be able to prove that, to people, this could be a way to do it. Or, you want to see if they're actually able to complete an online learning activity in the way that you had intended for them. These are things that, they can do on the web. So what you'll do is, go into user testing, and you'll describe what it is you want them to do, kind of describe that test, and then you're able to specify the profile of the people that you want to participate in the test. Or, and this is a really cool thing, if you want to, you can provide a list of your actual members or customers that this is going to be sent out to. And then user testing, is going to provide an interface for presenting your test activity to users and then tracking what they do on screen, and it's going to record everything they do. So it's going to record their mouse movements on the screen, their clicks, and it's going to ask them to describe what they're doing, so you're going to get their voice narration as well. So then for each user that completes a test, you get a video back in which you're able to watch and listen to the user going through the test. And I'll tell you, I've done this before on our websites. As you might suspect, it can be a little painful to listen to, but it is incredibly eye-opening, and it can be a very rapid way to get at what changes you need to make. So this one, it does have some cost associated with it. It's much less than traditional user testing, but it's going to be $49 per video on their basic pricing. You can get better rates than that if you do a lot more with them. But still, I mean, for key offerings, if you want to have 10 people test it, pay right under $500 to get some good user testing on one of your key products. This is it's really an amazing service. It's really money very, very well spent. Another one to look at is usabilityhub.com. They have actually a lot of free tools on their site. They have a tool we actually highlighted in our last podcast episode called a 5-second test, where it just they throw an image up on the screen for literally 5 seconds, and they have testers then react to it and answer questions about it. It might be, what was the purpose of this particular website that they've shown, or something along those lines. And you can get, 100 people very quickly to tell you, what they thought the website was for. And you may find out that they thought it was for something completely different than you thought it was for. So 5-second test is another great one to look at from a usability standpoint. And that one's free, or there is a free version of it, and then you can pay to get into more complex areas. So that's user testing, something we highly, highly recommend in general. And then the final one that I'll put up here, and this is a good one to end with because it's kind of a catch-all in terms of getting things done, because you might be able to find people who can do stuff with all of the tools that we've shown you here, or to just do pretty much anything you need. And this is Fiverr. This is a freelance site. It's oriented mostly towards creative and design type work. There's also some hardcore business skill type stuff in there that you can get as well. And Fiverr started out with the idea that literally you would go and pay $5 for a freelancer just to do some short task for you, like update something on your website, the kind of stuff that's just kind of hard to get somebody to do. And freelancers might be sitting around with some extra time on their hands and make $5, and then that possibly leads to other things for them. You can still get stuff done for $5 on Fiverr. That's the lower end of the scale, but they're also they've opened it up, to much higher priced work as well. So they have what are called, gig packages there that range from $5 up to $995. And you can get just about anything done here in terms of design or creative work. So if you need extra resources in creating assets for your online courses or for your marketing or whatever the case might be, Fiverr is a great place to come. Another great one that I'll add in with this that we also use a lot, in fact I referenced it yesterday in our pricing session, is a site called Upwork.com. Upwork is even broader than Fiverr in terms of the contracting that you can get there. All of these services, what's good about them is they provide this marketplace where you're able to get access to a lot of different talent. They have rating systems. You're able to see, how people have done on past jobs. You're able to get, an idea of their credentials. So it makes it a much less risky way to engage with contractors and to find, the right contractor at the right price to do what you need to have done for your particular learning and education business. So, Fiverr is a great place to look to for that. So that's the range of the cool tools that we wanted to cover in this session. I'm looking over at the chat panel now, and I'd love to hear, we'd love to hear, if you've got additional tools to suggest, or if you have, questions about any of these, we're certainly happy to engage with them. I see PictoChart, easy infographic design app that Jim suggested, and then Felisa is echoing there, so PictoChart. If that's not up on the Padlet, I would encourage somebody to go put that over there. See what else we have over here. I believe somebody had asked about. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to just say that I know, as you were saying, we're welcoming questions. We're also welcoming people sharing the applications. And I see Stephanie just said, for example, they're using Fiverr to voice over their e-learning courses. So that's a great example of how that's actually being used very directly in a learning business. And I know that Jillian said a while back that this was in reference to the mission to learn Powtoon, that that could be a great attention getter at the beginning of a self-paced online course or even a place-based event. So I know people are already thinking through, if they're not actually using them, they're thinking through the applications of those. I know one question we had earlier, and you responded to it in text chat, but it might be worth talking about here too, is just somebody had raised copyright of images, because that obviously it comes into play with a lot of the tools we were showing earlier. So you want to talk a little bit about that aspect of things?
Yeah, definitely. And so that came up specifically when we were looking at SlideBot. And with something like SlideBot, when you use their service, you're going to be paying a little bit to use their service, and those images that they're going to be providing into any presentation that you generate there, they're going to be extending the royalty or the license to be able to use those to you as part of your being a customer there. So you're going to have the rights to use those. Now, as far as other images to potentially use, there are a number of image sites out there. I think freeimages.com is one we use, and I'm blanking on whether I've got the letters and the numbers right. I think it's 123 RTF. I may have the RTF wrong, but it's a royalty-free. Maybe it's 123 RF. It's a royalty-free photo site. But you can go out, these days now, and Getty Images is another. It tends to be a little more expensive, but there are plenty of places where you can go and license the rights to photos and to video clips, and license them for different types of uses. So that makes it possible, really, to get just about anything you need to get into a website or a course or whatever the case might be. And actually, Jen has chimed in here to say that there's a bunch of image sites listed at the link that she's giving here. That looks like it's an article on Forbes.com. So yeah, stock photo sites that you can go to. And then somebody's asked if there's going to be a place where we can get a list of the links that we recommend. Yes, you'll have access to these slides. So all the links are there, obviously, and we've got the links here in the session. We'll put together a document too that just has the links there, easy to get to. And let me see anything else over here in the comments or questions. Are you seeing anything there, Salisa?
I think we got to most of them at this point. I think just to echo what you were saying in response to John's question, we'll take the links that we came prepared with, and then we'll also call the ones that have been added to chat, and we'll put together, like Jeff said, kind of a single document where all those links are available there, so that you'll have access to not only the ones we mentioned, but the ones that have been sort of crowdsourced over the course of this session, which has been great to get other people's ideas and experience.
And I do encourage you to go back over to that Padlet that I'm showing again right now. Hopefully everybody's seeing that, and add things there, and try out Padlet. Obviously, as a tool, kind of serves a double purpose there to be able to do that. Again, we've found that to be a really great tool.
Jeff Bryant has asked, in terms of the transcription service, he was just wondering about languages other than English, and if what we use, or if you know of resources that do transcription in other languages.
I believe that is possible at Rev. I don't know for certain because we haven't had a need for that, so I haven't explored that fully. To the extent that it's not available someplace like Rev, a site like Upwork.com that we mentioned, it's just a general freelance site. We haven't gotten translation services there in the past. We've gotten transcription services there in the past, but you can find pretty much anybody to do anything there, so that would be a place to look for that as well. And I did notice earlier, and I didn't respond to this, that Mary had asked about the name of our podcast. That is the Leading Learning podcast, and you can find that at, type that in, on the Leading Learning site, which is pretty much all dedicated to the podcast, but you can get specifically to episode listings at leadinglearning.com/podcast. So Well, we are right at the ending time for the session, so thank you to everybody for joining. I hope you've heard some useful things here. Thanks to those of you who shared. Please do keep sharing on that Padlet or through any other means that you're able to share with peers and colleagues, so that we can all benefit from our collective knowledge. But having said that, on behalf of Celisa and myself, thank you again for attending, and I will turn it back over to Jill.
Great. Well, thank you both for such a great presentation. I think everyone learned quite a bit today. With that, we will go ahead and conclude this session. And just a reminder to everyone, please visit our virtual exhibit hall during our break here or at the beginning or end of each day. You can now return to the conference page to enter your next session by closing this window and going back to the original conference site. This concludes this session. You may now disconnect.